What about now? Can you hear me? I think I might have had the volume down. You guys confirm if you can hear me now. Can you guys hear me now? Somebody comment. Okay, awesome. I had it turned down. My bad. There's one little setting over there. My apologies. Anyway, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, and hope you enjoyed the premiere there. And yeah, it's our first time doing this, so I appreciate your patience. What just happened there with the audio should never ever happen again, which is cool. So I saw one little slider there. If in any way the sound is not good or too loud or that sort of thing, I'll be keeping an eye on the comments. You can let me know. My levels show that it's coming through okay, so we'll go with that for now. Anyhow, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for joining us, and hope you enjoyed the premiere. That was obviously a hardscape style aquarium, and it's a style that I feel pretty confident in saying that Aquarium Design Group sort of pioneered, or I feel like we sort of helped to make it a formal style many years ago. And just a very quick story on, I remember the moment when we were about to do a new planted aquarium, new planted layout, and it was just the hardscape was there and done. And I just thought, wow, that looks really cool just as it is. And it was something we actually had to talk about. And there was a hesitation because this was maybe 2003, 2004. And we had just been doing so many planted aquariums, and that was just such a focus for us that there was just a hesitation about, moving forward with something that was about to be an aquascape planted aquarium layout, but moving forward with it as just a hardscape only. And I was pondering from the standpoint of maintenance and just, just the general ease and simplicity of it. And anyway, suffice it to say, we did go forward with it, and it was a success. And from there, we sort of evolved it into more of a formal style. And it's gone on to, I think, inform a whole new way of approaching an aquarium from a more compositional standpoint. So anyway, just a little backstory on that there. So, well, I am really excited tonight to be taking any of your questions, any comments or questions you may have about the aquarium. But first, I do have a couple of guests that I want to bring on. And cool. Sorry about that. Just checking with my guests there. So first up, I'd like to introduce Nader Abdallah, who is the owner of the aquarium, an Aquarium Design Group client. And he's got a really cool story, I think, about just how he came to have a custom aquarium installed in his house. And anyway, I'll let him tell the story, but it's really intriguing to me, and I hope you'll find it the same too. So it's my first time bringing a guest on a live stream here, so let's make sure this goes well. Oh, there he is.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Nader, how's it going?
Very good.
Cool, man. I can hear you perfectly, so I'm going to assume everyone else can too. You look great sitting there. You can hear me okay now.
Hey, nice and clear now.
Awesome, man. Thanks
for having me on.
No, it's a real pleasure. Thanks for being on. So Nader, we talked a lot there when I was there shooting the aquarium, and it was really inspiring to me. You were a big part of kind of giving me a push to even start doing a format like this and this sort of thing. But you are not a lifelong aquarium hobbyist. You're not someone who had a bunch of aquariums before and that sort of thing. So tell me a little bit about how you came to have the aquarium featured in the video, and that's right there in the room with you now.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, Jeff, because, to be honest with you, if I was to tell you that I'll be sitting here today with this massive, beautiful aquarium you guys built here, I would never believe it. if you would talk to me about a little bit over a year ago. But it was one of those things where, we lived in our house, me and my wife, we had got a new house and we moved in, and then, we started, looking at the house and finding the best ways to, make this house ours, because this is our forever home. So, when we were looking at spaces, they always, create ideas. And one day I was just walking through the hallway and I was like, you know what? I remember like seeing somewhere on, social media or somewhere where I saw there was a flush aquarium inside of a wall. And I said, wow, look at this big open space. It would be so nice to have an aquarium built into the wall. And, one thing led to another, and I started looking online, and then first thing I popped up was ADG, Aquarium Design Group. And then when I clicked on it, and I was able to just get a glimpse of the type of aquariums that I was seeing on the website, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen aquariums like this, because my experiences, as far as aquarium, my brother had an aquarium a long time ago. It was really nice, but I was younger. But when it came to actually aquariums, like I always thought about stuff that smelled bad, looked horrible, or a lot of maintenance. The really nice aquariums is what you'll see in those beautiful places that like galleries or whatever the case is. But I didn't think I could have something like that in my house. So when I was speaking to Mike, he's the one that answered the phone, and we briefly talked very initially. And it was amazing. Like I've never talked to him before, and all of a sudden, I have this guy who's extremely, attentive to exactly what I'm wanting and what I'm needing. And when I heard his, confidence level and, started, painting a picture in my head of how this could happen, I'm like, wow, this something that was just an idea. It's about to, I think it has a possibility to become reality. And that's when, I invited Mike over. And, but I'll tell you this right now, I've walked into other stores, and I'm not going to say what stores, and I'm just being honest from my perspective. And I was never, I was lucky enough to be able to find you guys and walk into that store, because the second I actually walked into that store after meeting with Mike, I was like, okay, we can't just do this small aquarium right here in this half wall. I got this huge space, right, and this nice, formal area, which me and my wife are all about interior design. And I'm like, you know what? A lot of people use these formal areas and they have these nice couches or whatever, and nobody ever sits in it. When I grew up, it collected dust. Nobody, it's just for looks. Right. I said, instead of just doing that, we can actually create a space that me or my wife or my family can get together and actually enjoy, versus a room,
right,
walk by and never sit in. But it's an amazing experience. I mean, from the beginning all the way to the end. I mean, I'm so pleased with the work you guys done.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that very much.
I know I was kind of all over the place here, but we can get into more detail.
Oh, sure. No, that was great. That was great. Yeah. I mean, the takeaway, Nader, is that, you had a particular notion or image in your head of what an aquarium was. And I think it's a common image, or, it's what I consider, and I speak of it, often as a bit of an image problem that aquariums have. And you didn't have an aquarium prior to, because of a pre-existing image that probably mostly came from, just what you had seen maybe in a chain pet store, or, something like this. Or I think what happens too is that our notion of a nice aquarium comes almost exclusively from the aquarium hobby. And so this is somebody who they're really, really into their aquarium, and it's kind of like it's a huge part of their life. They're on websites and Facebook groups for it, and it's something that's very encompassing. It's a hobby. It's something more than an aquarium in your space that you have a sort of a different kind of relationship with than the traditional aquarium hobbyist. So a lot of these things become a little bit of perhaps a barrier to entry, or on the custom aquarium installation side too. I know there's a lot of people think it's a big, nice aquarium in a space, in a home or an office, is almost always has to be a saltwater aquarium. This is a common notion people have too. And if they're not attracted to the saltwater aquarium for whatever reason, then there's this assumption that it's not really even an option to have this, what we would just call a nice aquarium, right? So,
Yeah, I think
I,
you hit it right there on the point on something I was trying to get to earlier was that, to be honest with you, the second I saw you guys' aquarium inside that aquarium store, what goes in my mind, somebody who's not an aquarium, like so much experience, is like, I was like, the only way it can look like that is it's in this type of place where these guys are working on it 24/7. And when I asked Mike and I looked at it, I said, Mike, to be honest with you, listen, the first thing when people walk into my house, they're gonna see this right in their face. Like if it can look like this, if it's possible and it can look like this, I want it, and I want to do it as nice as we possibly can. And I told them also that was extremely important for somebody like me, and I think the majority of homeowners who are not 100% background of being somebody who does aquariums is maintenance. Can I upkeep this aquarium to make it look like showroom quality?
right,
And that was my biggest concern with Mike. And he, rest assured, he told me, listen, we're going to take care of this in a way where we're going to personalize this exactly to your lifestyle and how you're going to have it. And this aquarium will be pristine. And when I
that's
knew
awesome.
it was possible, that's when I knew I was really on board. Because even before then, having a nice aquarium and a big, piece of glass and water, beautiful fish, if the water is not clear or if the clarity is not there, I mean, it can completely ruin someone's experience.
Right, right. So, well, first of all, I'm glad that it's worked out well for you,
Yeah,
that you're getting
so
so much
excited.
enjoyment out of it.
I was very nervous, to be honest with you, because
Right.
it was a big move for us, and to be able to all the way come through, I just feel so relieved and so blessed to have met you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and the feelings mutual, definitely. And when we have Jared on too, we're going to explore the maintenance a little bit, if it's possible at that time. If it's not, totally cool. But when we have Jared on and get to the maintenance part, if you're able to just turn the camera possibly where you pop off one of those panels, it might be cool to show everyone the way in which the water change is done, and kind of the hard plumbing that's right there with the filter bottle at the water source and all that. Not a huge deal, but if you can, it'd be
Yeah,
cool.
we can do that. When would you like that done?
Yeah, sure. So just sit tight with us here. I'm going to switch over. I'm going to bring Mike on a little bit to talk a little bit about some of his experience with, this project was one he speaks of often. It was, just something about the relationship with you and everything else. It was really a big deal to him to get it right. And we did a few different things on this one too that he can talk about that I think are really cool. So just bringing on Mike Senske from Aquarium Design Group here, my brother. Hey man,
Hello,
how's it
everyone.
going?
Good, man. Good to see you.
There's the man.
So, in listening to you talk a little bit, and I was, when I knew Jeff was working on this video and everything, I have to say we've been doing high level, high expectation custom aquariums. We could write a few books on it, but yours was one that I really felt your passion, and I'll never forget when I was in my office where I'm sitting now, and we had one of our retail staff. I think he just happened to call. Hey, I'm interested in a custom aquarium, and he pokes his head in my door and says, "Yeah, guy." And this employee at the time was fairly new and didn't quite know the drill. And yeah, guy called and I gave him this number, what it would cost. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. Let me get you on the phone. I got you on the phone, came over and met with you. You may have guys have already had this conversation a little bit before I logged on, but you had a closet that you wanted to open up, which could have been done, but it was the evolution of that process. And and I even looked at the other wall where the aquarium is not on right now, kind of that wall to the left. And I said, well, hey, what about, right here? What about, and then we talked, and then you, I'm not sure if you had even come in quite at that point yet for a tour at the space, but I remember we revisited that wall. And then when we came up with the dimensions and the sizes, and then then we talked about the cabinetry, but that was a process that would evolve a little bit even further later. And and then I just you get into it, and every client's expectation is different, and that one moment I'll never forget is when you came into my office to give us, the payment for the project, and you looked me square in the eye, as I've had done before, and you're just like, I'm really counting on this. I really want this to be, this has to be perfect, And I just remember I was like, I promised you our best. And then, we got into, we got into the cabinetry part of it and everything. And that to me was actually one of the more challenging components. And we're very fortunate to have some highly skilled trades that work with us, that I have relationships with. I remember we originally started with glass shelving on the sides. And I think you and your wife had discussed that that's going to be a little bit dated. So you really then started getting into the whole process and the design of it and how it was going to look. You're extremely detail oriented, which I really appreciate it, but it puts us up to the challenge, and then when we had gotten into the hardscape, I was really grateful the fact that you gave me a lot of creative license. When we got into the selection of the rock and wood, and then even when we were talking about the fish, I shared with you the philosophy, because you didn't have a lot of experience with aquariums, or not much, if anything, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And and I expressed that having fish that are coming from a similar like geographical region, where there's a little bit more sense of purpose, of philosophy with it, and you really got onto that, and then there's just the shape and the dimensions of the aquarium. And then I was sharing with you the wood and where it comes from, and then the rock, that's Frodo stone that we get from a friend of ours in Poland, and kind of shared the story of how we get the rock, and that resonated with you on just the story behind the rock and everything that was going into the aquarium. But I got to tell you, the cabinetry part of it, I'm never forget. You were on vacation, and I came in to follow up after the cabinets were installed. And I was just, I had to call, I think I called you or text you and just was like, I was so happy, because that's a detail, inside the aquarium, the aquascaping part of it. I don't want to say that's a no-brainer, but that comes very naturally to us. It's the aesthetic, the how it was going to fit the wall and the lighting. And then, in these big custom projects like this, there's, you always are learning as you go. And, we had those panels on the back of the aquarium that you see in the video. And I had not done this installation. Jeff and I came up really originally with backlighting these aquariums like this. I know it's a trend now, and I'm not going to say I'm the first person to ever do it, but when we really embrace the hardscape design, the cleanliness of it, the ease of maintenance, we were like, typically you'd always just put a black vinyl back on an aquarium, or, you'd mask it out, and you lose the hardscape with that. But when we did your aquarium, I'll never forget, we had to put the lights on, we light it up, and you could see the squares. You could see the wall behind it, and it looked like, tic-tac-toe or Hollywood Squares behind it. And I was like, here comes the curveballs.
Yeah.
But we worked through it. We put that mat behind it that diffused it, so that worked. We had to look at a lot of other elements too that we explored, like, your stairs. You have a staircase behind this aquarium and kind of a balcony walkway in your home. So when you're up there, you're looking down on the aquarium. That cabinetry had to be fitted, it had to be properly ventilated. It had to look just as nice as everything else from above when you're coming down on the aquarium. Just a lot of attention to detail. And the fact too that you really couldn't hide or cheat any of it, because the laminate was so clean and minimal. The lines had to be perfect. That's where we kind of came up with the magnetic panels that we do on the doors with the leveling feet, so you don't have to worry about hinges coming out of alignment and affecting the doors. One other thing that comes to mind too is like, you were out of town during this part, is we needed to penetrate your wall and tie into your water supply outside. And that was, normally normally I'll work with other contractors or a general contractor or a home builder or commercial contractor. But here again, I was bringing in our trades to make that happen, and that went as planned as well. So there was many moments where as we were involved in the installation of your project, where I'd wake up, 2, 3 in the morning, as we all do with certain things in our work and what we do, and the wheels start spinning. Like, and then even furthermore, I remember when we put the first fish in there, and you kind of wanted the fish in. I think you had some guests or family coming over. Yeah, so there was a deadline there, and then FedEx lost the fish or something. We had to go to. That always happens. We got the fish.
Yeah, there was a shipment of fish that it showed up, but like literally like almost 2 weeks after it was supposed to be delivered. It was
so it was terrible. Terrible. We got those in there. And then I also have to say too that it goes without saying that it's a team that makes all this happen, and I'm so grateful to have the staff that Aquarium Design Group has, and Holt and Austin and Juan, everybody that was involved on the project, as well as the manufacturers, the fabricators, all the trades that make it all come together, in there. And then I kind of want to lead up to Jared a little bit, because he's one of our senior aquarists, and he got it, so when I handed you off to him, he was really passionate. I think you and I had discussed initially, the angelfish, some schooling fish. We tried some cardinals and rummy nose, and that wasn't quite a good fit. We needed to go with some larger schooling fish. And then Jared came in, and just his experience and how he's performed all the husbandry skills and curated this project it's been, couldn't happen without him.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Hey, we did have a quick question over here that Mike, you're probably very well qualified to answer. It's from Julian. He's asking, how much filtration do you run on a tank like that? Now, he notes seeing the 2 Eheim 2262s and something else under there. Tell us about the other filter that's on the tank.
The something else on there, that is a aqua ultraviolet bead filter. That's the ultimate 2-1 bead filter. Yeah. So the way to put it's very similar to like a small sand filter, like you'd have on a swimming pool or something, but it's got a kind of a plastic bead media in there, so it acts as a biological and somewhat of a mechanical filter. I do notice that on all the aquariums that we have these on, that we just have incredible water clarity. And then when Jared is there performing aquarium maintenance, he's able to backwash that particular filter and drain the aquarium very efficiently. But just gives us a lot of service there. One detail too on this aquarium is that, you might say, well, why didn't we put a sump on it, or a Caldis filter, or some sort of sump with biological filter media? But when you look at this aquarium, if we have a skimmer box located anywhere, you're going to see that. And so to have this aquarium backlit and where you're not seeing any equipment whatsoever, that bead filter allows us to have we're using a Cascade Performance Pro pump on that. So we can have a lot of water flow and a lot of water movement, and in the aquarium to kind of compensate for, let's say, not having a external or submersible pump on a sump, if you will. Right. We've also learned too that a lot of times, if they're properly designed, and we don't need to get into those other conversations, but sometimes with a conventional sump and a freshwater aquarium, you end up with a lot more particulate in the water column. And as you can see in this aquarium, that's not an issue. Then obviously the 2 Eheims that are packed biologically, using like some CChem matrix, some other filter medias in there as well, and we're running Purigen and things like that for some mechanical filtration.
We love the Purigen. We love the Purigen. Yep. We use a lot of it. No, it is noteworthy too that, and sometimes I think people take this, you might miss it in a sense and just taking in the scene, but you don't see any equipment at all, which, is just something Mike and I were very adamant about in our designs from really the earliest days, like really trying to eliminate as much of that visual encumbrance in the tank as possible. And so to me, aquariums like this are really the sort of the peak of, again, what I call aquarium design, that philosophy of aquarium design really coming together, because it looks, the integrated feeling, the aesthetic of that integration into the space wouldn't be totally ruined. But I mean, I think Nader would agree, if we had a big green tube coming over the side of the tank, and or
That's not what he wanted.
let's put a big tube. Let's put a, I always joke about a tube that heats water. Like nobody wants a tube that heats water. They want an aquarium, and they might need a tube that heats water to have an aquarium. But if we could have the aquarium without those things, that I think we would all choose that. So
another point too, Jeff, not to interrupt, but like when you look at the aerations, a comment or a question I get asked, how are we bringing those bubbles through the bottom of the aquarium? And there are some products out there that do that. We can incorporate that through a bulkhead fitting through the bottom of the aquarium. But when Holt, our project manager who did the installation, we looked at those products, we raised an eyebrow, because water on the floor and failure is not an option. And
right.
So Holt actually came up with a design to build and fabricate using special fittings and John Guest fittings and check valves that are similar to being used on ice makers and stuff. And today we've been very fortunate that we've had zero failure with his design in that. So that allows us to incorporate the air. And I'm careful when I'm having that conversation with clients. So we're going to have bubbles, where we're not having a bubbling treasure chest, but now the aquarium also becomes a water feature, So even if you're not focused on the fish and you're away, and the way the light captures those bubbles, it looks like little balls of mercury coming through the water. It's just another beautiful aesthetic feature.
Sure. And again, just for clarity, that's the air is coming by way of its own dedicated bulkhead through the bottom of the aquarium. So
that's correct. Yes.
Again, there's no tube, there's nothing to suction cup to the inside of the glass, or nothing to pop up, like that. So just a cool design innovation, and something even I've noticed here from the comments, there's quite a few guys from other aquarium installers and that around the country, hopefully around the world, and hopefully gleaning some cool tips like that from what we do. One other question that was in there: what media do you put in the Heim canister filters? And I think it's a pretty standard setup here of mostly biological. We do like Seachem Matrix. I think, as most people agree, it's a great biological media. And well, I tell you what, it's a great time to go ahead, and I'm going to bring on Jared here, Jared Kirby, who is our not only veteran aquarium service technician, been with us for 15 years, a very long time, suffice it to say, but a very seasoned hobbyist and a guy who really, really knows his fish. So, Jared, can you, in answering Anthony's question, confirm for us what's in the 2262 Eheims on this aquarium?
Yeah, sure. It's mostly bio bale, and then it's stacked the same in either. There's about halfway full of bio bale, and then a bag of Seachem Matrix, and then a layer of bonded pad, and 2 large bags of Purigen, and then another layer of bonded pad, the mechanical filter pad.
Okay, so sandwich, you got the Purigen sandwich between the 2 mechanical filter pads.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the Purigen just serves as a water polisher on the way out to catch any tannins or any other organic. Sure.
Not a situation where you're finding a need for carbon.
No, especially with South American fish, I find a lot of times you tend to run into problems with lateral line erosion and things like that. So the Purigen does the same thing, carbon would do, but somewhat better and for longer. So. Right. Very cool. So I'm going to answer this one other question, and then I definitely want to dive into some conversation with Jared. But Sergio was asking how we heat the water on this tank. Now, it is all of the equipment and species, by the way, also is in the description in the video. So noteworthy, because we've never included that kind of stuff in our videos. So all that is there. And but it is, I think, both
Do both Eheims have inline high door heaters, or is there just one? Is there one or two?
Both EIMs have 300-watt high door inlines on them.
Yeah, so 300 watt high door inline heater is how we're heating the water, which again is just great for one less thing inside the aquarium.
Just to interject just a little bit, just in case it comes into question and goes, well, that's not enough heat for these aquarium and these fish. There is a fair amount of heat transfer because the aquarium does have an inline 57 watt UV sterilizer. So you're going to get some heat transfer from that, plus from the Eheim pumps and then the main pumps. And not a tremendous amount, but it just finds a nice balance with being mindful of electrical consumption.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, I find too, those high door inline heaters, the way the heat's dispersed, being fed into the Eheim return, you tend to be much more efficient and be able to heat larger quantities of water than you would with the traditional amount of wattage that you would apply to that size aquarium.
It's an interesting point too. Is we've used the high door inline for a long time. Obviously, well, my point is to say that it's practically the only inline heater in the market, and it's always been a curiosity to me. I know they have their quirks, but it's not something that it's just unusual that when something actually works, other manufacturers don't copy it. I don't know if there's anything to say about that. I just find it sort of interesting.
They actually could. High door has gone through some corporate changes, and actually right now those heaters are not available. So it's a great opportunity for another manufacturer to develop such a product.
Right. Well, okay, fair enough. Yeah, because it's definitely, I mean, it's one of those that unless there's a sump, then on a freshwater aquarium, it gets tricky to incorporate the heater. This is the kind of thing too that if more of us in the custom installation and service industry were creating a demand for this kind of product, I think surely somebody would make it. It would be more common. It's probably a case where there's not a ton of them being sold out there for smaller canisters, smaller aquariums, this sort of thing. The application just to fit it in there takes a lot of additional space, et cetera. So kind of an interesting side note, and something that I'll always be doing with the videos and the content is, encouraging engagement from the consumer and from the hobbyist to just create demand out there, because there's just not enough conversation about that. And I think a lot of times manufacturers are just not looking at these kinds of areas. So inline heater is definitely something that is very cool, and there's more of a need for. Yeah, we did say CChem Matrix, Anthony, as far as the biological media. And we had another question about, may I know what type of lighting you use? Again, the specific models are included in the description for the video there, if you want to scroll down and just have all that in a snapshot. But Mike or Jared, refresh me again what we got on here. I know it's a Kessel.
That's the Kessel 360X. They're one of their newer lights, and it's been out for a while. And then our client actually has the control with it, obviously on his phone, so he can control it. But we just do like the Kessel, particularly on a big aquarium like that, just for the shimmer. That's their the Tuna Sun. It's just a really natural light. We've been using those Kessel lights for quite some time, and
Kessel might be the ultimate for shimmer, being that single point light. Yes. Unlike when you have a strip of LEDs, you don't get near the shimmer effect. If you think about it, the single point light is simulating a single point of light known as the sun, which is what, when we say shimmer, that's what we're trying to recreate as sunlight. So just as a side note, you incorporating a light that is coming from one or fewer points will definitely give you a stronger sense of the shimmer. He asked about the background lighting on this one too, and I'm pretty sure this one you mentioned, Mike, was our kind of the one that we had designed ourselves with. Yeah,
and unfortunately, that's another product that's no longer available. It's the current True Lumen Pro LED.
It was great for backlighting.
we've got a custom install in the back right now where we're playing around with some backlighting for, and I just can't find anything that can compare to that. Again, Nader, he wasn't one to want, the disco lights behind the aquarium, and he wanted just a clean, natural,
No use for fluorescent green or bright purple behind the aquarium.
No
Imagine
purple or
that.
red,
Wow.
none of that. But
Yeah.
and when you see his home, that would be totally not what you'd want to do from a design perspective. But fortunately, that was another stress point because those were not easy to acquire at that time. I think I had to go onto Amazon and order those online. And but so the backlight is a current True Lumen Pro LED. That was like their 12K or their diamond white that they would call.
Yeah.
It works and it works great.
They've discontinued the True Lumen Pro, to be clear. It's not.
That's correct.
Wow.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was
Confirmed
great.
that. Well, they have their
light.
Serene backlight system, which is it's a nice product, but
Not the same.
It's not the same. Not at all. Completely different animal. Yeah.
Interesting. Yet another useful product bites the dust while we get 10 more that
and the whole thing is that Serene backlight was inspired by what you and I were doing with the True Lumen light.
Right.
That's we came and that manufacturer saw that and they go, whoa, let's do this. And like, well, it's not the same, and you got rid of what works and now you're dealing with this. So anyway.
Just for clarity on the backlighting, it's we're using there's a film, and I think most hobbyists are familiar with the different frosted films and that sort of thing. So there's a semi-transparent film back there, and then there's a light, in this case, an LED strip light that's mounted behind the aquarium and sort of angled, at the right angle there to create the backlight effect, which when you turn off the backlight and see just the aquarium, once your eye is adapted to backlighting, you got to really get used to it because it doesn't look great without the back. I mean, the backlighting to me just adds a dimension that is so cool, even with the main lights on. And then of course there's a couple scenes in the video where we turn the main overhead lights off and just show the backlight. And it's just its own unique, cool thing that's not at all sort of gimmicky or, it's something I think it's a very useful lighting mode for enjoying the aquarium. So very, very cool. Something very innovative. I would love to see in more companies' designs out there. And then there was a question about if we use any of the Oaza canisters with the built-in heater. Gentlemen, I'm going to avoid being triggered by the use of the word Oaza in this video right now because it would probably
just leave it alone, Jeff.
I'm going to leave it alone. But the reason I know and it's something to sort of consider. But I think the problem with the Oaza on an aquarium of this size and volume, and I'm sure Mike would confirm, is that design would be potentially problematic because of the pressure.
Yeah, there's too much pressure the way the clips go on, and even Eheim may not approve, or how us and many other custom installation service companies or even hobbyists have plumbed these through the bottom. But it's basically just a loop system. So with the way the lid locks down on a 2260 or 62, you don't have that pressure. I'm just a little hesitant with an Oaza. We've done that with smaller aquariums that actually Jared maintains, where it's maybe only just a 24 or 30 inch tall aquarium. But this is a taller aquarium, so it's a hazard. And I go back to saying last thing I want to call is from him going, "Hey Mike, there's water on my floor." So
right. So just for clarity, the reason, and then because Cody here suggests you could get a canister with a built-in heater instead of an inline, but there again, because we're plumbing from the bottom with bulkheads and this kind of thing, and you've got a 4 foot tall aquarium, that's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of water volume. There's just a number of concerns, I think, and I think what Mike's alluding to is the long term. So when you're into the many, especially with an installation like Nader's, that is, this has now become this is a fixture in the home. It would be an undertaking to get rid of it at this point, right? So long-term stability and integrity is everything. And so and it's one of my chief complaints with the designs out there is that, there's a big gap between the sort of biggest, let's say Owaza or standardly, commonly available Eheim or Fluval, et cetera, and getting into these commercial size canisters, which, we find so useful because a sump or an overflow isn't always practical or the way we want to go on a freshwater installation like this. So, yeah, it looks like between the TrueLumen Pro and the inline high doors being problematic, we're going to be looking at other options. And a lot of times we end up looking to other industries to find solutions to problems like that. So,
and Jeff, also too, like with this aquarium, a lot of it gets into just what products do we have available? Because us as like aquarium designers, and this is a design. It's an art installation. It's aquarium where all the fish are the players. They are the actors within the theater. That we're creating this look. So we're not just looking at it like, here's this filter I need for my aquarium. We're looking at it. We're trying to push the limits on the design envelope, which is what you see here. This aquarium wouldn't look the same with an overflow, and we're able to achieve that with having great water quality and healthy fish. But again, we're a little bit limited, sometimes on making that happen with the products there. But I'd like to hear Jared also talk too about about the fish and how he kind of, after I kind of came with angelfish and, and kind of how you engaged with our client, and then it took it from there, because now he's here on the weekends, buying exotic Plecos and,
Let me answer one last question.
Pretty soon I'm gonna start looking for another place to find another aquarium in his home.
Let me answer one last question over here, just because I want to make it a point to make sure I get people's. It's just a simple one here where Anthony wanted to confirm. He says bonded bale. No, we're using bonded pad, bonded filter pad. It's that traditionally. Sometimes it's like a blue and a white pad together. And
then the bio bale is a shredded PVC material that others may not be familiar with. So typically in an Eheim, you'll have what's called EpiMech, which is the ceramic noodles in the very first stage of the filtration, and that'll keep water from channeling, through the rest of the filter media. What we use is bio bale. So it's a shredded PVC material that performs the same function. But when it comes time to service the filter, instead of having a bunch of the ceramic noodles that you're having to clean and deal with, you can just take out this shredded PVC material that looks almost like if you took PVC and created long strands of spaghetti egg noodles is kind of what it looks like. Yeah. And but it performs a good pre-filter function and keeps water from channeling.
It's been referred to as bio bale, but
correct.
So anyway, the question, why is Jeff triggered by Owaza? It's going to be in another video. We'll save that for another time, Anthony. We'll be getting to that, I promise, though. And so, Jared, definitely, man, let me say, and Mike will agree, props. Jared and Nader both. Because you guys really, on this one, you took the fish to a level beyond, I think, the original vision, or kind of what
way beyond.
What Mike was originally suggesting was much more minimal. And I think through this really next level curation of different species, Jared brought something, really added dimension to the tank, that if you watch back through the video again and pay attention to just the layering and kind of the hierarchy of the fish in the tank, and that they're all getting along so well. But if you could expand on a little bit of your selections for us, Jared, that'd be really cool, man, because it's awesome. You there,
Jared?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, one thing we use that we don't normally use that often are the red tail hemiotis. They really added a lot to the water column.
They're definitely playing the schooling role of the, but it's something. It's that long linear shape. But man, they school so tightly in there. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot like rummy nose, and more of like a back and forth pattern. And they're really worked out really well in there.
So Nader, was this a case where there was just a ongoing dialogue with you and Jared about the fish selection, and then you were just kind of going with his selections, or because I know you're a detail oriented guy, you know?
Yeah,
There's a lot of back and forth.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Mike's vision, which is honestly, it was a really nice vision. He wanted to make it as simple as possible and artistic, and just leave the angelfish in there, and then maybe add just a little bit of here and there. But the more I looked at the tank, and as somebody who I want to spend time in this room, I like to see schools of fish. I like to see different aspects going on in the aquarium at the same time, in a way where, yes, I'm admiring the angelfish, but then at the second time, I'm over here looking at, the beautiful geofish and the chalceus and, all these other things going on. I was like, oh, wow, look at that one. That one's getting big, because you don't really notice them that much. So it wasn't all at one time. It was definitely over maybe a span of a year, where slowly but surely it was a learning curve, and we started learning. These fish, they have personality, and we started off with the cardinals, because I always pushed on Mike, hey man, I love those cardinals, they look so nice, the blue and red ones, just to add a little bit of a dynamic. And he's like, well, Nader, they're probably not going to last in there. But I kept pushing it, and we ended up trying, I think, a few hundred of those, and they were going.
Unfortunately, the angelfish liked them too. So
what's that?
Unfortunately, the angelfish were fond of the cardinals as well.
Yeah, they wiped them all out.
I think go ahead. Sorry.
We did at least a good few hundred of those as well, and cleaned them all out. And I was just like, there has to be another option, but it's funny is, these guys, they have a pretty funny character where, out of the few hundred rummy noses we have right now, we have they left a pack of 15 in there. And they're like, you know what, these 15 are going to make it, and we're not going to. They've been in there for a few months now. And it's funny, if you try to add some more, like Jared told me that, I was actually really surprised. He says, oh, you think, they're fine with rummy noses now? No. If you try to add some more, they're going to remove those as well. So I did try to add some more, and it's funny, they kept it back at that 14. So that's what they like in that group. And then we tried Mike recommended the candy cane tetras right after those. And when we started doing those, same thing happened. They're a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. So we were thinking, with the Ultimate Angels, and maybe they wouldn't go after them as much because, they're a little bit harder to eat, but they went after those as well. And then, speaking with Jared, I'm talking about somebody who, unbelievable. Anytime I call him, anytime I had a suggestion, anytime I was thinking about something, it's amazing how he was always directing me in the right way. A lot of times I'll show him a picture and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then he'll tell me, look, no, because of this, and this. There's somebody like me who's not, have so much knowledge of fish, and I don't know these things. So to have such a knowledgeable staff at the, one click of a button, I feel grateful, because I could be thinking, oh, look at this nice little fish. And then next thing you know, this nice little fish is destroying everything I have.
Right, absolutely.
And you guys came up with a great idea of the chalceus, which, it is, not the chalceus, the hemiotis. They're amazing. Talk about a beautiful school, which, they have a nice size to them, like you were saying, but with an aquarium this big, and you have these nice size hemiotis, it actually fits perfectly. It's if you kind of squeeze it down, think about a small fish tank, and then you put some small schooling fish. It's kind of like you expanded the tank, and then now you have another schooling fish that fit perfectly with this. And then it went on and on and on. Every time, Jared's always coming through with great advice all the time.
And Jared gets a chance to indulge a little bit of his deep inner hobbyist on aquariums like this too, which is cool. I think it's a cool combination of a client that's getting, you're getting something that's more of a design statement in the home, but there's some depth to it as far as, there's some extremely cool fish in there that are not.
There's the plecostomus too, which you don't see, because I'll see you in here on, on Saturdays, and another amazing staff member we have is Don Scott.
I was just about to say that.
He's a legend. So, and then Don and Jared communicate, and he's in here, and then they know what plecos would be appropriate, because not every pleco is appropriate for this particular layout or these fish. You know, so then you kind of became a, you know, you became a Placo collector, if you will.
Yeah, there's a good maybe 15 or 20 Placos in there, and they come out, you know, when I feed them here and there and there. Some really beautiful fish. And I was just about to say, Don, he's an incredible person I ran into, and I got his number, and then we started texting, and I was texting every other week, hey, any new Placos coming in? Or
You got the Pokemon bug.
He's like, oh yeah, I got this one. And show me a picture of it. I said, okay, grab it. Make sure nobody takes that one.
Yeah. Well, I think it's noteworthy too that it's an aquarium that it's not colorful in the traditional sense. There's not a bunch of brightly colored fish in there because, you know, again, in the spirit of a visual harmony with the space and this kind of integrated feel, you know, bright primary colors would not work very well. I think even if that was a typical saltwater aquarium, even a fish only system with, you know, the normal cast of brightly colored marine fish, you know, that it would look again like an interior space with a fish tank in it, and not sort of just not a room where the aquarium is a seamless sort of element in there too. So, you know, that I think it's interesting that somebody who comes from a, you know, sort of a non-hobbyist background, who ends up with something that they're so delighted with on so many levels, that in many ways is not our traditional notion of what a quote unquote, you know, beautiful aquarium, you know, custom aquarium in a home would be. And it's, you know, there's a minimalist sort of thing going on there with the hardscape itself, a lot of open space. But again, you know, picking up on the colors of the room, and, you know, where again, you've got this fish collection that is just a visual harmony. I can take in the room as a whole and the aquarium is part of it. And that for me kind of deepens the entire experience. I'm not just looking at a fish tank, but you know, it's the context of the space. So just something I always like to kind of point out, because so many people come to us with initially almost an obsession with color, or a real predisposition anyway for color. And I'm saying, well, okay, if we take a look at the space, is that really going to work? And have you ever seen an aquarium that's interesting and effective from a design standpoint? And when we're talking about aquarium design, you know, color may not be the thing. Just like the room itself, you might have, but you didn't paint the walls Coast Guard orange. You know, it's not a brightly colored room. There's not a bright green leather chairs. And so, you know, in that case, a very muted sort of colored aquarium where the shape and the scale and the proportion, the relationship, the dimensions of the fish themselves, that becomes the interest, not just, oh my gosh, that's the most colorful fish ever. And so to me, I think it's cool when, again, somebody is able to appreciate an aquarium design, aquarium presentation in a new way, when they really, what's happened is you've embraced the philosophy of aquarium design, and not which is something different. Just from the standpoint of having a conversation about it, it's something different from a fish tank in a room. You know, nothing wrong with that.
Jeff, not to interrupt, but I think that was part of the process. You're right. When we met, we look. It's like taking when you come into our space, you come into our gallery, and we you know, I walked you through it. It was more just kind of getting you to see aquariums through my eyes, you know, and how we see things and our philosophy. And many times too, we'll have a client that wants to, they want that color, and we will do that. You know, we'll do African cichlids or whatever. But it was where you really, you know, it's that consultation and the communication with that. And it was a progression, you know, through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. So guys, we're getting
when people talk about color, like, just for example, like my father who came over and he took a look at the tank, He's like, wow, this is such a beautiful tank and such amazing fish. But he says, where's all the color? I said, why don't you come on over here? Let me show you something. I bring him real close to the tank. And I said, why don't you look at these fish nice closely?
Yes.
He started looking.
Thank you.
And amazing.
Thank you.
He said, wow, all these fish like have all these different beautiful colors on them. And it's not screaming at you, but it's in a way where it's like, it's a level
Thank you.
of class. It's
Yeah.
a level of class. It's a classy color.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Versus this bright orange, fish are having here. When you go in here, you got these shimmers of gold, red, purple on these angels and these hemiotis that you really appreciate if you just take a second and look closer.
There you go.
When you
Take
get
a second.
So there
Just
is
take a second.
level of
Yeah.
color, but in a classy way.
Yeah, very much so. There was one inquiry here if we help overseas customers design their tank, and we absolutely do. And you can, the email is on the contact portion of our channel page, but you can always email us. It's just info@aquariumdesigngroup.com, and we can absolutely assist with all of that. So that's very much something that we offer. So guys, we have been going about an hour here, so probably want to wrap it up before too long. But
Yep.
I did want to touch on one really cool thing about this tank that I think is very unexpected, and that is that the water change, the drain, and the fill water everything is integrated right there at the aquarium. So there's not any hoses or a lot of maintenance gear being dragged in for the regular service.
Says thank you.
Yeah, right.
And that was honestly one of the biggest things when I met with Mike. I addressed my concerns with having an aquarium inside my house, and I wasn't lucky enough to catch Mike when the house was being built, and we could figure out a filtration system that's tied into the home or whatever the case was. And I said, Mike, I'm really worried about having this fish tank. I always see, videos of guys with like buckets and hoses and, look at the space. This is not really a space where I can get the place dirty, and I want to find a way. I said, Mike, is there a way? You can make this as low maintenance, as simple as possible. I'm talking about. And then he's like, listen, I'll take it from here. I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to do. Okay. He says, calm down. Because you know me, I put that pressure on people, which I get it sometimes. I just, I like to hone in on something and show you how important it is. And that was one of the most important things. Anybody who has a house and wants a huge fish tank, what comes to mind? The maintenance. They think about the mess. They think about the smell. They think about all this. And luckily for me, I was able to have this, however many gallons this tank is, and be able to never see a drop of water on my floor. Yeah. Never to have to deal with any kind of, water changes or see any kind of hoses. The way they set it up was amazing.
Yeah, so it is, it is plumbed where, we're just opening a valve and it's going into the back there. I didn't find an elegant way to integrate that footage into the video, but I do have it if anybody's ever interested in sort of how we did that. But where it's effectively draining out behind the house, watering the grass. The aquarium water is just very nicely watering the lawn back there. And then the fill water is right there at the tank. Exactly how we do that and the nature of especially the incoming water from the tap is something that just for the sake of time here, I'm definitely going to take on in another more focused video. And Nader, if you don't mind, I may revisit the tank for some footage of specifically that, because it's a very elegant way of integrating.
Beautiful thing about everything you just said there, you don't even have to go outside. Everything is done right here at the tank. Right. It's like there's no kind of valves you got to turn on outside. Everything is done right here, which is so convenient. And
it's simpler and more elegant than you might think, though. Mike can attest to some of the challenges of just making sure you get that hole in the wall just right, and making it happen.
That's one thing Mike did. He made it happen, man.
Yeah. There was one quick question here. What's the general maintenance schedule for a tank like this? Jared, what are you doing exactly on a weekly or every 30-day cycle on this tank?
Well, every 2 weeks I'm there for just normal maintenance, just water change and whatnot.
About how much water are you changing?
Honestly, close to 100% by
Yep.
flushing it. 'Cause
Yep.
with the water tap water filtration system we have, we're able to effectively drain the aquarium while we're filling it. So you're in essence able to change all the water without upsetting the fish.
Clearly not upsetting the fish, as you can see.
And then on
So,
the E-Hives, about every couple of months on either one, they're staggered, and we change the Purigen as needed.
yeah. So it's really just the ability to do that big water change, so conveniently and easily. That's a testament to, I mean, I think Nader, you would confirm that the tank stays very nice. I mean, you don't see a big decline between service visits and just the overall presentation of the tank, the water clarity, this kind of thing.
The way the tank has been running, I mean, it's
Very
it doesn't skip
consistent.
a beat. The way he has it set up, and when he comes and he does this thing every 2 weeks, or like once a month, actually twice a month, every 2 weeks. We do a nice water change. It's flawless. There was a couple times where that's where I feel like I'm really blessed to have guys like Jared, who if I address a concern, I'm like, hey, Jared can speak on this, but let's just say the black algae that we were really trying hard because they started building on that back glass and on the side, and it was something that
Genius solution, by the way, Jared. Genius solution.
It's something very minor. Now, if to the normal eye you wouldn't see it, but to me, who's very detail oriented, it was getting to me. And he's like, "Listen, I'm gonna add this certain fish right here, and you're gonna see what's gonna happen."
Yeah, Jared, tell us what you added there to deal with it, because it totally worked.
About it. And he
I added a small group of.
I couldn't believe it. The next week, all of it was gone.
And what'd you add, Jared?
It was a small group of Siamese algae eaters.
Yeah.
Because with the BBA, that they don't eat it, but they eat its reproductive organs. So just in a rather short amount of time, it just dies off.
Yeah, because it was. I mean, I even looked closely for it when I was there recently.
It was gone by the time we got here.
Yeah, didn't see it, which is awesome. Really awesome.
Yeah, and
thank you, Jared.
Filtration system. People don't realize the filtration system is. I got so many workers in this tank, nonstop filtering and cleaning this tank. While Jared takes his, during the 2 weeks, they take over the other 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's an effective deployment of, just again, it's a curated situation. In other words, there's those fish that are also performing the practical role of keeping things clean, et cetera, are also cool to look at. I mean, that's another cool character in the aquarium that's also performing, a really vital practical sort of function of controlling algae or whatever the case is. So I don't know. There's a sort of a sensitivity required to get all that right that I think is sometimes overlooked. We're just sort of taking in the aquarium's cool. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. It's a big aquarium in your house, or whatever. But there's a lot going on there that is a really cool melding of design and, what you could think of as more the hobby dimension, or, the special knowledge one acquires being, passionately into tropical fish. And we're combining that with a particular vision for, how to integrate the aquarium into a space in a very intentional way. And so that to me is aquarium design. And I'm so glad that you've had a chance to experience that and that it's been effective for you.
No, thank you guys so much. I was very pleased from the beginning all the way to end, and everybody in between with you guys. I couldn't have asked for, a better aquarium, a better space in the house. This will be here for,
Yeah.
as long as I'm in the house.
Well, thanks so much, man.
I'd like to say one comment too here that it was yesterday that Jeff, sent me the link to the video. Maybe it's just happening as I'm getting older, but I truly, I was moved. I shed a tear of happiness and gratitude, just being grateful to take a moment and realize that, since I was a child, that I'm doing something that I love and I truly love to do. And I think all of us get caught up in our day to day. And I wear a lot of hats and have a lot of responsibilities here, but just to watch this and to see the aquarium and just know the process, and then to have, my brother, co-owner, business partner, videographer, our relationship with you as a client, Jared, all my staff that made it happen. This one moved me, man. This one truly moved me. I mean, it got me. So thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. So there is again, I'm just always going to make an effort to really try and include the questions and everything, right up till the very end here. So, there is just one here, and it opens an interesting topic. We won't expand on it too much today, but Sergio's asking, how is the pH of that aquarium? How do you control it? And I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we have no particular reference, or Jared, I would suspect you've never tested the pH of the aquarium per se, and that we just don't. What's that?
It's liquid rock Houston tap water, so
right. It's Houston tap water, right? It's what we use. It's
alkaline and really, generally.
And you don't, and just to confirm, you don't obviously experience or see any reason to just to know the aquarium pH beyond just the it's sort of trivial or might be interesting, but two, you don't see any ill effects of not testing, monitoring, or affecting the pH in any way. I mean, obviously
no, not at all.
Yeah.
The big thing with pH is for it to remain stable more than anything, and a lot of people end up causing more harm than good. Kind of chasing numbers and trying to steer the pH of their tank when they weren't really even having any problems related to it, and chasing those numbers and causing pH swings, you end up causing a lot more harm than any kind of benefit.
And that's well put, Jared, because I think what I tell a lot of with like even hobbyists, that we're in an area, so we're able. So as far as keeping South American fish with a higher pH, we don't have any. We have no problems with that. Then again, though, if you were trying to spawn these fish, yes, you want to get in tune to pH, and you want to deal with pH and address that so that you can, if you're going to spawn them. But just to properly, just for general husbandry, and what we're doing, we're not spawning fish or breeding them. So what Jared said is correct, and it works perfectly for us. Right.
So no particular concern on those variables. The overwhelming majority of tropical fish these days are, even if they're wild caught, they've gone through, by the time they're in your aquarium, in most instances, there's been a pretty large degree of acclimation to relatively harder water conditions, and we just experience absolutely no negative effects otherwise. So very cool. Well, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there, but very cool. Very much enjoyed it. Judging from some of the comments too, looks, hopefully others were gleaning some useful information here. A few requests to save this, and I will definitely be doing that. It'll be saved as its own video there too. I'll also plan to upload a 4K version. It'll be noted as such, because I found when you take these videos and you watch them on a big TV, which you can these days easily do from your smartphone, it looks cool. It's very cool looking. It's an experience beyond what you can get looking at your smartphone, which is often the way that we're consuming this kind of content. So the 1080 looks nice, but when you get the full 4K up there, looks really cool. So in fact, I'll do that here this evening after we wrap up here. So anyway, guys, this has been really, really cool. Look forward to more of this kind of format moving forward. Nader, thank you so much, man. It's an amazing tank, and really was an honor to feature it as our first premiere video, because again, for me, it's it really sets the stage for this concept of aquarium design, and we're going to see how that influences all styles of aquariums as we move forward. So thank you for this sort of cornerstone installation, and
Thank you guys.
Just for being
Very
great,
blessed
man.
I've met you guys. Thank you so much, and
Thank you.
appreciate everything.
Thanks so much. All right, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.
See you in the
Thanks so
morning,
much.
Jared.
All right.
That's it. Bye.
All right, guys. Good night.